Sometimes we all have these issues, and sometimes it's situational, sometimes it happens all the time. But most people have a few of these issues, though many wouldn't admit it because they worry it would make them look bad. No one likes to look bad or think of themselves as bad, but having any of these issues doesn't make you bad. It just makes you who you are right now. Today is a new day. I am Nikki G, your host. Welcome to the Lone Doctrine, a safe space to bridge the gap between your authentic self and your mental health. We are your food for thought exploration station in order to make today better than yesterday. Welcome back to another week. I'm super excited to have you here because you are here for a reason. You have made the choice to better yourself, which will in turn better your life. Here at the Lone Doctrine, we believe that real change happens in small steps. Yes, of course, we might have that light bulb moment or the epiphany of life, or things may drastically change, good or bad, but it all leads us to a place of becoming more receptive or more aware to the change. And when we make that change into a positive movement, we know that we've taken those small steps before in order to be able to see the opportunity in the change, the opportunity in the pain, the opportunity to rise up. Life happens all at once. And as we continue to have the willingness and the humility and the knowingness of making sure our mind is being fed with the good stuff, we then realize we're completing the circle. It's not just about our body, but it is also about our mind. And it's also about our spirit, however you define spirit. And all of these things coming together to make this life, this one and only life, the best life possible. So this month and every month, we pick a topic. And this month, we've been starting to kind of poke at emotional healing. Emotional healing is a broad topic. It could be something that encompasses so many different facets, so many different things, but we wanted to address emotional healing in a way that's very practical, in a way where we can start to take those small steps and realize that our emotional healing happens on the daily. Now, you might be overwhelmed by hearing that, especially if you're going through a hard time, because sometimes even feeding your mind with the good stuff, even desperately trying to do what you know is good for you, sometimes it seems like it's not working. But what I want to remind you is you're building new pathways, you're building new habits, and it's not about this quick fix. It's not necessarily the flip of a switch, but it's your continuous repetition that leads you away from negative thinking, from negative emotions, and from not being able to really recognize and embrace and sometimes push into those negative emotions in order to understand how to get through them. When we don't understand our emotions, when we push them away or suppress them, or we allow society to really hone in on us, telling us that you should always be fine, everything should always be good, that's when it gets worse. Would you agree? Our society is slowly changing, but not changing fast enough. And I'm here to tell you that life, being human, is full of many different emotions, good and bad. So, in understanding our emotions, we can truly benefit about being self-reliant within our emotions, being emotionally self-reliant. Now, I have always been taught that my emotions, my reactions, my responses are my own responsibility. And it is also my responsibility for my own well being. When we put the responsibility on someone else to keep us happy or to solve problems all the time, you will most likely find yourself in a vicious merry-go-round. Because when we enter into a relationship and we're taking and we're taking and we're taking, and we don't have much to give, the relationship will eventually fizzle out. I've always believed that a relationship shouldn't be 50-50; it should be 100-100. Full cup, full cup. Bring it all in. You have so much more to offer. Because if you rely on someone else, whether it be a partner or a friend or a family member, to make you happy, you most likely will always be disappointed because your happiness, your well being is your responsibility. Now, it's okay that sometimes we ask for help, that we have support. But at the end of the day, we're having to do the work and we're having to make the changes and we're having to have that deep, deep knowing and having that deep, deep desire and choice to get better. In light of the idea of becoming emotionally self reliant, I wanted to share with you something I found on zenhabits.net. This is something that you can do today or this week and do slowly or sit down and do it all at once. It's kind of going to be this like self help test. So, first thing is ask yourself, are you emotionally dependent? Let's ask ourselves some more questions. Are you looking for a romantic partner to make you happy? If you have a partner, do you look to this person for love, for intimacy, for support, for reassurance, for validation? Are you upset if your partner doesn't react in a certain way, doesn't meet some sort of need? When you're alone, do you feel the need to fill the loneliness void with distraction? Are you always on the phone when you're alone? Are you always on social media? Do you always have to be doing something to fill that void or fill that uncomfortable feeling of being alone? Do you complain a lot about other people? Do you get mad because of things they do? Is your relationship the center of your universe? What about your relationships with your friends or with your kids? Do you get bothered if your partner does something that doesn't include you or cuts out something that you've been doing together? Do you get jealous? This list isn't comprehensive, of course, but some of you can probably see yourselves in a couple of those questions or more if you're completely honest. When we're doing this self test, when you take any self test of any kind, especially when it comes to your emotional well being, the best thing you can do is be honest because there really is no point in doing any of those or even trying to progress. If you're not being honest with yourself, who else will be? If you find yourself feeling this way, if you find yourself relating with a lot of those questions, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. Sometimes we all have these issues, and sometimes it's situational, sometimes it happens all the time, but most people have a few of these issues, though many wouldn't admit it because they worry it would make them look bad. No one likes to look bad or think of themselves as bad, but having any of these issues doesn't make you bad. It just makes you who you are right now. However, while this isn't an issue of being a bad person, I think the skills of emotional self reliance are useful ones to learn. They can transform your relationships and transform your happiness all around. So, how do we get this way? Usually, this way of thinking starts in childhood. We rely on our parents for our emotional needs, love, comfort, support, validation, etc. And we don't often develop emotional self reliance skills as kids because parents, of course, out of the love for us, do their best to provide for all these needs. And then as we become adults without having learned any emotional self reliance, we look for someone else to fill our emotional needs, to fill that gap. We look for the perfect partner, and we'll probably go through a few breakups because one, we're not emotionally independent. And so we do needy things that hurt relationships. And two, our partner is probably the same way. When we're in this stage in our lives, most likely when you're hurt, you tend to blame other people. And that goes for everyone in this stage of life. If they aren't there for us, we blame them. If something bad happens to us, we become the victim because you can't move on with your life if someone has done something bad to you, right? However, there is a solution. We have to learn this. Happiness is not outside ourselves. Let me repeat that. Happiness is not outside ourselves. We look for happiness from others, but this is an unreliable source of happiness. I promise you. Other people will come and go, or they'll be emotionally unavailable for their own personal reasons. And here's the thing, it's not their job to fill our emotional needs. It is not their job to make us happy. They might be struggling trying to meet their own needs. So instead of looking for happiness from someone else, we have to realize it's not out there, it's within us. There's a big difference in happiness when you're sharing it. It's not to say that someone else should always be taking and taking and taking, or draining and draining and draining. But when you are emotionally responsible, when you are emotionally self reliant, you share happiness, and the happiness is doubled, tripled, quadrupled, and it's contagious. Happiness isn't the future, happiness isn't the past, it's not somewhere else. It's available right inside of us right now, all the time. So, how can we find this happiness? It takes some inner searching, but consider these suggestions. This is what I want you to do all week. Not only answer those questions and be honest, but here's some practical and actionable ideas. Sit by yourself without a device or a distraction for just a few minutes. Look inside. Notice your thoughts as they come up. Get to know how your mind starts working. See how fascinating it is. Be the observer. This in itself is an endless source of entertainment and learning. If you can get yourself to be the observer, the audience, watching your mind wander, wondering what it's doing out of curiosity, then we get to know ourselves better and kind of how our mind works. And by sitting by yourself, it'll reveal a lot of opportunities and places for you to work on your own betterment. A really great source of happiness is creating, coming up with ideas, producing something. It doesn't necessarily have to cost money. You can cook a meal, you can draw, you can color. There's endless amount of things to do in order to be creative. It's something you can do on your own, and you can learn your own abilities. Another great thing is learning something new, trying something new, changing things up. It is really easy, especially this day and age, to end up in this Groundhog Day. If you don't know that reference, it just means that you're living the same day in the same way, day after day after day, as if you're stuck on a hamster wheel or a treadmill and you're not going anywhere fast. Learning something and doing something new is a great way to keep your mind fresh and your emotional well being high. And curiosity is a boundless source of happiness. When you become curious about something, no matter what it is, no matter what it is, it could be watching movies, it could be robots, it could be drawing, it could be music, it could be watching different documentaries, it could be studying about animals. I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. You could watch how it's made and watch how things around you are made. I'm a total nerd and I really like that stuff. But when you become curious about life and the things that are around you, you allow your brain that muscle work to grow, to be active in a really positive way. When you raise that frequency of your mind, you then learn how to fix your own problems. If you're bored, fix it. If you're lonely or hurt, comfort yourself. If you are jealous, don't hope that someone will reassure you. Reassure yourself. Take responsibility. If you find yourself blaming others, tell yourself that other person is never the problem. Of course, you can believe the other person is the problem, but then you are reliant on them for a solution. If you believe that they aren't the problem, then you look inside yourself for the solution. If you find yourself complaining, instead, find a way to be grateful. Flip the switch. If you find yourself being needy, instead, find a way to give. If you find yourself wanting someone to help you, help yourself. Create your own source of built in happiness. Walk around as a whole, happy person needing nothing. Then come from this place of wholeness, of self reliance and independence, and love others. Not because you want them to love you back, not because you want to be needed, but because loving them is an amazing thing to do. As we become more self reliant, we become a better person, and in turn, we create a better world. When you take action within yourself, it is contagious. If you're feeling like a lot of people you're living with, or your family, or your partner, or something in life is bringing you down, the best thing you can do is live through action. I can talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. It's not going to make a difference unless I'm practicing what I preach and I'm living these self-fulfilling choices, self-reliance, bettering myself every single day and waking up, no matter if I have good days or bad days, of making the choice to be better. When we do that, we create betterment all around us. So, I would love for you to go back, listen to this episode again, and I hope you take this food for thought and you apply it throughout your week. And remember, even when you think it's ridiculous, or it feels funny, or it feels like it's not doing nothing, keep doing it and keep fighting the good fight.